Hello, Earthlings. Hello, Earthlings. Yes, my name is Wrenn, and I'm so pleased to be here in Asheville, North Carolina, with two of the people in the world that I admire the most. And I want to thank Malaprop's bookstore. I want to thank Stephanie in particular for organizing this event. This event is sponsored by Truth is One, as well as the Psychedelic Society of Asheville. And I do want to read a little bit about the Psychedelic Society of Asheville. This is a local organization, and their mission is to educate, advocate, and create community around the healing and transformational power of psychedelics. And they provide the support, resources, and a safe container for those seeking guidance in healing, spiritual growth, and personal development through psychedelics. They're all volunteer run. They serve to foster the development of an informed culture that respects indigenous lineage, scientific research, harm reduction principles, ethics, personal responsibility, and the intentional use and facilitation of psychedelic medicine. So Truth is One, and the Psychedelic Society of Asheville are co-sponsoring this event, and I couldn't be more happy about that. I do want to introduce the incredible being next to me. This is Alanna Collins. She is the co-founder of Truth is One, and she's the leader of the Asheville branch. She's a facilitator of plant medicine ceremonies and has undergone training and initiation from an Umbandaime community where she lived and studied in the Amazon. She studied with Davi Paula, who is a world-renowned spiritual teacher and ayahuasca facilitator. And she has a very unique background as a plant medicine facilitator, in that she has a formal background as a psychiatric registered nurse. And that came in handy, as you'll discover as you read my book. So this is Alanna Collins, and she's right next to me. I can't believe it. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you so much, Greg, for that introduction. And thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being present for this very exciting offering. Mothership is making its way into the world, and we'll hear more about Greg's story, obviously in the book, but today we'll get some snippets. So thank you for just being a part of this witnessing of someone's personal journey of personal transformation through this work that a lot of people have experienced themselves, the healing power of plants. And I would like to take this time to introduce our Brazilian guests. Here we have Davi de Paula and Yara, who is also accompanying Davi, and I'll also introduce Janaína, who is Davi's daughter, and the three of them are here from Brazil, traveling and sharing their work, sharing about their lineage and their spiritual practices. And I'll share a little bit about Davi's history. Davi was born and raised in the Amazon, surrounded by indigenous communities. He's actually from a rubber tapper family and didn't go to the city until he was 12 years old. So he grew up in a very traditional background. His father was an environmental activist and conservationist. So he grew up in that environment and eventually found his way to plant medicine. And that has taken him on his journey more than 30 years of working with various kinds of medicines. And he's one of the most renowned and respected spiritual leaders in the Amazon of Brazil, and he has relationships with all of the indigenous communities in the region. He's currently devoting himself to a huge conservation project, a medicine planting project, so planting sacred medicines so that for future generations there are sustainable regenerative ways to have these medicines available. As well, this was also a social impact project supporting the local families that are in the region to give them other ways of supporting themselves. And so this is his current work that he's doing. I think that's all I'll share for now. Anything else? Yara. And Yara, I'll introduce briefly as well. Yara was born into an Umbanda family and is an incredible drummer. Her medicine is the drum, and she is doing various rituals, ceremonies, and invocations of the nature spirits or orishas using the drum. So she's been drumming since she was a very young child and has this incredible gift that she is sharing in the US for the first time this year on this tour. And Janaina as well, born into this family, Umbanda family, Santo Daime family, born and raised in the Amazon of Brazil, and is accompanying her father, Davi, for this tour, sharing about their lineage and their rituals and their spiritual practices. Thank you so much. Muito obrigada por estar aqui. Acho que eu vou traduzir tudo, tá? And I don't think I won't translate everything unless you want me to.
No,
Yeah,
but there may be some things to
Okay.
translate that would be very important. So yeah, here we are. So here we are, and so you read the book, I guess, and and I want to read a part of it that I think you'll remember well.
Mhm.
This part of the book, this is in part 3 of Mothership, which, by the way, is about my turn. Again, I want to emphasize that this book, Mothership, is about my turning to endangered coral reefs and ayahuasca to save my life, reparent me, and in the process, all of that awakened my ecological conscience. It taught me to care for the Mother Earth that saved my life. And so I had gone to Peru essentially as a psychiatric patient, walking a very suicidal path. I experienced a really transformational experience, a lot of transformations there. And then when I came back to the United States, I met Alanna, and then she brought me to Brazil. And that's where I met Davi, and I lived in his community, made ayahuasca, made the medicine there, and had some pretty profound experiences there. And so I want to read you a part of the book that I've never read from before. And this is during one of the ceremonies at Flor de Jurema, Davi's spiritual community in the Amazon. So when I say reparented, you'll understand what I mean as I read this. The following night, there was a concentration ceremony, a long period of silent meditation while we were on the medicine. I vowed to remain in the temple, having spent the day in my hammock getting psyched up, to remind myself I was clean no matter what. I clawed at the ground to get dirt in my nails. I looked at Alanna across the temple. This was 5 years ago. It gave me strength to look at a woman I could call my teacher and coach instead of my replacement mommy boss. Neither she nor Davi was ever going to do for me what I could do for myself. They reminded me, a grown man, of my autonomy. As we sat in the temple watching our breath, things were rising from my head again. Crystal shafts, a cable for a space elevator, an ayahuasca vine, a sword. This time, though, I understood all of the antler stalk cable things as umbilical cords connecting me with a transcendental reality. A place, if you can call it that, where ideals like honor and decency, like husband, father, mother, and son, exist in their non-physical perfection. Connected so with timeless values and archetypes, I had a felt sense of them. They were absorbable, real. In this way, the medicine again reparented me, this time by a father as well as a mother. I couldn't see these new parents, but they made themselves known as they instilled themselves in me. I got to experience myself as if I'd been raised by parents with integrity. I was welcomed into a new cosmic family. It wasn't cheesy. I didn't become the fourth son on the Brady Bunch or anything. I was watched over and nurtured, co-regulating with my new parents. As we bonded, I didn't panic. I received the safe touch of a cuddling father whom I could look in the eye and say, I want to be you when I grow up. This is in quotation marks. Physiologically, this is from a research paper. Physiologically, we see activation of the same emotional brain centers with ayahuasca administration as we do in attachment relationships. This electrifying sentence in a pioneering paper by Jessica Nielsen and Julie Megler was highlighted, starred, and circled in my research binder. In other words, ayahuasca stimulates the same brain regions that being deeply bonded to someone does, such as a therapist, parent, or partner. The CPTSD medicine Davi poured activated my brain's left amygdala and parahippocampal gyrus, and over minutes that were years in an alternate timeline, I had the parents I needed. They asked me to pause in the ever-changing multiverse. Listen, feel the sensations, and learn. Let my character be reconstituted like a caterpillar in a cocoon. I opened my eyes to look at the back of Davi's head. Outside after the ceremony, I looked straight up at the constellation Sagittarius, my teapot dome-shaped zodiac sign. Go figure. There between Jupiter and Saturn was the center of the galaxy, where a supermassive black hole or a hefty bale of dark matter might live. No one knows for sure. I started to say something grandiloquent to the sky like, I vow that I will evolve. But a presence shushed me, the way a reading teacher stops you when you stumble and tells you to start over. It said, you're loved no matter what. Standing with my dirty fingernails by the temple outhouse, I was surrounded by unconditional love. For a second or two, I knew overriding universal care. Every wayward hair in my beard was accepted. My grandma donkey laugh, my shit talking about Kirstie Alley and my love for Joan Rivers, my making a project out of evolving of personal growth. I'm loved no matter what, I repeated back. Flor de Jerema was a boot camp for neuroplasticity, a dojo for fermezza in the Anthropocene, the age of Roundup and TikTok. Every ceremony, all 8 of them in 10 days, was a masterclass in grace.
Thank you so much, Greg, for this recounting of this night and just a small part of this trip. And wow, your words, so incredible.
And you were there, so were you. And you know, you were, you're human, right? You're human. And for me, you held the line. There was fermezza in both of you that I saw, and it inspired me. It inspired me because I did suffer from complex PTSD. I did panic getting close to people and had addictions that tried to cover that up. And so to be there, having the activation, having the attachment centers of the brain reactivated. And by the way, you can't leave. You have to sit there. You can't go dance in the forest or whatever. You have to sit there with your panic. And I learned so much about how to be be present and how to be with difficulty. And that's something that Davi talks a lot about, you know, is how to be with difficulty, not running away from it, but, you know, how to be with it. And so thank you again.
Thank you so much, Greg. And I think I'd just like to give a little bit of context about this particular kind of ceremony that Greg was referencing. This is called concentração, or concentration ceremony, which happens every 2 weeks in the lineage of the Centaur Davi. So this is a practice where you drink Davi, you drink medicine, and then you're sitting in silent meditation. And this is part of the foundation of the Centaur Davi, this particular format, because of exactly what Greg said. This is just like any other practice of meditation, even without any medicine. This is the time to sit with ourselves and to sit with whatever is uncomfortable, fear or thoughts or panic, anything else that comes up. And with any plant, this, of course, is intensified. So thank you for sharing about that. And I would love to hear a little bit more, Greg, if whatever you're willing to share, because I remember when we met that you had already done a lot of different therapies. When I met Greg, this was not his first round at meditation or his first attempt at any kind of spiritual practices. He had been on a long healing journey for decades already. So I'd love to hear, you know, from you anything that brought you to that, you know, about your past, and then also what other techniques you encountered but maybe didn't have the same kind of impact.
That's a great question, and this is something that I go into some detail about in the book. So I think that scuba diving, I spent quite a bit of time in Indonesia scuba diving by myself in silence in very remote areas, and that prepared me. That underworld psychedelic, that underwater psychedelic world prepared me for ayahuasca. And so in a sense, like diving into the ocean and diving into the psyche, they were kind of companion practices or companion journeys in a way. And so that scuba diving prepared me in some ways for ayahuasca, but also, you know, I had spent close to a year of my life, if you counted up all the days. I'd spent almost a year of my life on silent meditation retreat. I mean, I was very intent on getting better. And, but that was also kind of an escape. You know, it was an escape from society. It was an escape from my triggers, which were people, people who wanted to bond with me and who I wanted to bond with. And so it didn't quite work, you know, and talk therapy. I'd been in talk therapy for many years. That just didn't quite do the trick either, because, well, the therapist is also human. And, you know, therapists say some pretty wild things, some really weird things sometimes. And that might set me off and I might leave that therapist. Some of them needed considerably more help than I did. I'm proud to say. And then, you know, I had taken antidepressants. And I know you have some experience with helping people get off of SSRIs, but you've also, as a psychiatric nurse, you've also administered SSRIs to folks, and those didn't quite do anything for me. They didn't really do much of anything for me. And so I was really walking a very suicidal path when I found you, you know, and you saved my life. You helped save my life. So we need to give people options, right? We need to have, you know, psychedelic assisted therapy. We need to have that available, you know, for people. Well, it's just an option, because what do we know? We know that 50,000 people took their lives last year in the United States. 100,000 people overdosed on opioids. This is unacceptable, to say the least. And our mental health system is broken. And so we've got to make these certain medicines under certain circumstances with trained facilitators. We need to make those, they need to be available for people because it literally would save lives. And I don't like to, as an English professor, I'm not really supposed to say the word literally very much because it's sort of a no-no, but it's literally would save lives.
Thank you so much, Greg, for that. And absolutely, we are in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance, as many of you know, and are experiencing the power of these plants and these medicines, of course, with the right facilitation and skills and preparation and integration. There's so much power, and there's healing that can happen at an exponential level. The expansion of consciousness is exponential beyond what most of us can reach through other more traditional means. And yeah, I think I would like to maybe hear from you a little bit more, because this book is talking a lot about CPTSD.
Yeah.
And I would like to know, either from your experience or from the research you've done, how these plants are helpful with CPTSD.
Sure.
The little bit that I know is the effect of the limbic system, which these medicines can all deeply affect, which is the main system that is affected with any kind of deep trauma. But I would love to hear a little bit more from you, Greg.
Sure. And I should say before I kind of dive into the science, I would never have gone to Brazil, to the middle of the rainforest, to sit 8 ayahuasca ceremonies in 10 days. I would never have been able to do that. Because, CPTSD is a disorder of trust to begin with, and few people, even without CPTSD, would be willing to go to Brazil for that amount of time to work so intensively. But it was the science. It was the science. I had a binder, and I talk about this in the book, which, by the way, incorporates 70 peer-reviewed scientific articles into its storytelling. So I could not have written this book without the science. I could not have gone to Brazil without the science. I would not have trusted you had I not known about your psychiatric nursing background. So science is really important to me. And so how is ayahuasca, how is daime a medicine for CPTSD? And the first thing to keep in mind, as I said before, is that it lights up the parts of the brain involved in attachment relationships. And those are exactly the regions of the brain that my therapists were trying to get lit up in my brain, but that felt invasive and scary. So, so in Brazil, I was able to be in that safe container, have those attachment relationship brain regions light up, and be surrounded by love, right? The love that I was surrounded by. The music, the beautiful music and the beautiful hymns that we sung there, all of that, as those attachment relationships, those attachment brain regions were lit up, I was absorbing all of that love and goodwill. We know that psychedelics return us to a childlike brain. And so it's priming us to have a do-over. Because if you have CPTSD, you need a do-over, right? CPTSD is the result of prolonged, repeated abuse in childhood from which you cannot escape. And so your trigger is not a lightning strike or a gunshot in the distance. Your trigger is bonding with other people because you have that foundational caregiver relationship that was, I think I could say this on YouTube, fucked up. Totally fucked up, right? So, it's a do-over. We know that psychedelics reopen the critical periods of development in the brain. So for social reward learning. And who is our first teacher in social reward learning? Our mother. Who abused me? My mother. So this was this was an excellent intervention for me to have mother ayahuasca enter into my body, enter into my system, and do her beautiful work. And so I got a new benchmark for feeling loved. I got a new benchmark for safety in relationship. And I did have a relationship with Madre Ayahuasca, right? We have these relationships, that's a relationship, that's the hallmark of an ayahuasca journey. And so, so the imprinting I had as a child has been largely replaced with her imprinting. And so I know I can't walk on water and I can't even change a tire, but I don't freak out the way I used to freak out. And I've ended up bonding with the planet itself, with Mother Earth herself, and I'm not special. This is our natural state. Our natural state is to be loved by Mother Nature and for us to love Mother Nature. And I'll just kind of close this bit here by reading a quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer. You probably know who that is. She's an indigenous writer and scientist who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, and she writes, "Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond." And that has been my experience, and it's not special. It is how it is supposed to be. It is how it is supposed to be. It is our birthright. And unfortunately, that's not happening. And we have a planet, we have a planetary emergency that's underway. So, long answer to your question. The personal and the ecological, yes. Ayahuasca, daime as a CPTSD medicine, but also as an eco-sacrament.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and intimately just about healing that you've received and the experiences you've had in the past. Thank you so much.
Do you think I could ask Davi a question?
Yes.
Through you?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Okay. So I wanted to ask him, in his experience.
Ele quer fazer uma pergunta para você. Né? Na sua experiência.
Has he seen, what's his perspective on daime on ayahuasca as a reparenting medicine?
O que é a sua perspectiva sobre o daime, sobre a medicina sagrada, como um mecanismo de sem alguém não tinha pais boas, um mecanismo, uma medicina para ter outro tipo de pai e mãe. O que você acha sobre isso?
Eu acho que clareia mais um pouquinho a pergunta para mim.
Ele está perguntando como que é. Ele tinha trauma de mãe. Então, quando ele encontrou com o daime, ele sentiu isso é outra mãe e outro pai. O daime é outro tipo de pais. O que você acha sobre isso?
Isso é uma coisa que ele perguntou, né? Meu entendimento. Que os traumas que a gente tem traz de pai e mãe é porque muitas vezes a gente carrega mágoa. Né, dos pais, da forma que foi tratado pelos pais, do não, muitas vezes, dos pais. Né? A gente alimenta ali um padrão.
So the healing that is possible is because of repatterning. So the possibility of reparenting ourselves is through the repatterning of our minds using these medicines.
E tanto daime ayahuasca, ela É um instrumento de compaixão.
These
Ayahuasca quer
medicines,
dizer vinho das almas.
these medicines are instruments of compassion. Ayahuasca is the vine of the soul, the medicine of the soul.
Que ela desperta a nossa autoconsciência.
She awakens our higher consciousness.
Aí você tendo consciência, você encontrou pai e mãe
And
espiritual.
when you have this consciousness, we encounter our divine mother and divine father.
Se tratando que a ayahuasca é feita de um aborto de um cipó,
And so ayahuasca is made of a leaf and vine,
que representa o pai.
o cipó.
Sim.
So and this is represented as mother and father, the vine representing the father.
E com uma folha que representa a mão.
And the leaf, which represents divine mother.
Então, para o buscador,
And so for a spiritual seeker,
ele desperta o amor de pai e mãe.
this medicine awakens this divine father and divine mother within ourselves.
Quando você desperta dentro de você o amor,
And when you awaken within yourself this love,
você perdoa seu pai, sua mãe, se perdoa e tudo vira pai e mãe, porque vira universo, você vira um com tudo.
then we are able to have forgiveness. And this love awakens within. We're able to forgive everyone in our lives, our mother, our father, or anyone else who has harmed us.
E torna a vida a cada dia um novo aprendizado, né?
And we can have a new life.
That matches my experience. And needless to say, when I was in Brazil, I didn't understand much of what was being said. I mean, you translated some things, but very well, by the way. But that's my experience, you know. And I had someone ask me today in a podcast, well, I mean, because the book is about forgiveness. It's about the trajectory of forgiveness, and that's why I'm very specific about what happened to me as a child and as an adolescent, because I want people to understand that for some, what happened to me might be unforgivable, but you can't live like that. You have to let it go. And so, so she asked me, well, how does ayahuasca cause you to forgive your parents? She just didn't quite understand. And as I was driving here, I wish I could turn back time. Wish I could have said, well, how does aspirin fix a headache? There's science. We can sit here and talk about the science of aspirin and how it might help with a headache. But at the end of the day, there's still something mysterious about it. And so, yes, there's 70 peer-reviewed articles in here, and we can talk about the attachment relationships and the attachment centers of the brain lighting up, and critical periods reopening, and this setting and this and that. But at the end of the day, it just awakens the divine mother and the divine father. Like it just does. Just the way when you pop a Xanax, you feel less anxious. It's just how it works. If you've got the right setting, ayahuasca can do that. I mean, if you have the right intentions. So I'm always, and from a scientific point of view, I'm very interested in, or psychological point of view, like we all carry these, we all internalize parents, working models of our parents. We all internalize some working model of a mother and of a father. And sometimes those working models are in need of some debugging, let's say, right? Some reprogramming. And so, yes, repatterning. And so it was just your spiritual community was a wonderful laboratory for learning how to be open to being reparented, if you could tell them that.
Então, sua comunidade lá no Sul da Direma foi tipo de laboratório onde eu podia aprender como essa reprogramação da minha mente, fazendo outros padrões na mente, como pai, como mãe, como eu posso encontrar com perdão.
So that's an important part. Well, I think maybe we could, I'm wondering if maybe we could have maybe 5 minutes of music or so.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's question time, so if you're gonna do music and then questions,
That would be great.
Yeah, and then that will probably bring us close to 7.
Great, so maybe we could have maybe a song, I don't know if you take requests. It's not quite like that, but maybe some kind of song that's he's inspired to sing after this discussion. Anything.
Qualquer canção você está disparada para tocar.
So that Yara can play too.
De Umbanda, de Santidade, de você, qualquer.
probably, I think we kind of wrong start.
There could be more while you're signing.
Well, we're so, yeah, after.
Yeah.
But you can only imagine what it's like to be feeling vulnerable, feeling panicky, dealing with your trauma, and then to hear this, to get this infusion of love and sunshine and hope and goodwill and camaraderie and brotherhood and humanity, just this blast of that from this music. And so it's just an exquisite tradition, and this is why I continue to follow you.
So if you want to open up to questions, we'll start with the folks here. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand.
Yeah, how would you prepare for an ayahuasca session, or or setting your intentions? And what was that process like for you going into that, knowing what?
Well, I think my intention was to, for me, my intention was to have traumatic memories come up. Like I wanted to have the kind of hidden dragons come out. Like I was ready for that. And so, because I read the science, right? I knew about how, ayahuasca causes traumatic memories to resurface, and it causes the panic to be dissipated from those memories so that you can live a more, a more balanced, sane life. And so I was really just looking for so that was my preparation. Really, was just thinking about, okay, how can I stay put? And the Portuguese word that they use in the Sentaur tradition in Brazil is firmeza. And so I saw, working with Alanna, I saw her modeling firmeza, and I knew that I wanted that for myself, and this is what I talk about, extensively in the book. And so I also prayed for firmness, like the ability to stand in myself as some difficult stuff came up, so that it could be let go of. And so, and what better container for that than Davi's spiritual community in Brazil for me at the time.
I just want to chime in here and say that Greg, one of the most important things for especially working with ayahuasca is having a grounded meditation practice. And when Greg came to work with medicine for the first time, he had an extensive meditation practice for, like you said, almost a year of silent meditation there. So that foundation was very well laid out already. So I think that's part of why you were able to do that work and receive so much healing, was because there was such a solid foundation of that practice.
And there were definitely freakouts. Don't ever be. And I talk about the freakouts too in the book. I mean, it was messy. It was messy, literally and figuratively. It was messy.
So we can do one more question, and I saw a hand up for sure.
I don't know if yes, thank you. Thank you all for being here. First off, just want to thank you gratitude in the room for everything you're sharing. I'm just curious about medicine in the sort of framework where, in a lot of cultures, medicine, healing, spirituality, and creativity are all kind of one and the same thing. And I'm curious about this from like the First Peoples native perspective about taking medicine out of the ecology that it was born out of and comes into people's lives with context and lineage and experience. And how it compares or how people can relate to medicine from another place versus, say, like Cherokee medicine or medicine that has been here in the mountains for thousands of years. Like, I'm just curious about these things as an ecologist and as a person that cares deeply for the earth and the way that we relate to her with medicine in mind, and how we can all be responsible and educated about what it is to seek medicine, what it is to receive medicine, and how healing can happen responsibly without you know, conservation efforts and planting medicine purposefully. And I'm just wondering if anyone has anything to rip off of. I don't really have a specific question, but just some curiosities.
Well, I mean, I am a white man, so I should, you know, that's probably clear, but I want to make that clear. And so you know, so I'm not indigenous, but I do want to say that this medicine, if there's one thing that this medicine has tried to teach me, and an emphasis on tried, is reciprocity. And so, and I know, and Davi has modeled that in his environmental and efforts in the Amazon to help indigenous communities be protected from land grabs and deforestation and other factors, even missionaries maybe. So like he's made a point because his spiritual community is benefiting from these medicines, and so it's common sense to make sure that it's common sense and it's ethical, right? It's the only thing to do is to make sure that the people who are sort of the sacred holders of that medicine, that they are protected. Because as our planetary emergency unfolds, we can't just benefit from these medicines and leave it at that. Like the people of the Amazon, especially the indigenous communities, they have to benefit as we benefit, and they must be protected. They must be protected because they're kind of on the front lines of the climate crisis. And so Davi has really modeled that for me, and I think his spirit of environmental protection has just it's found its way into the book. And so I'm just so excited for this environmental, you know, initiative of his to safeguard parts of the Amazon and to replant some of these medicines so that there is a sustainable kind of agroforestry tradition that's starting to be rekindled. So, and you know, we can talk more about that after the event, but it's really inspiring to see his work, and it's also, so this is, so I would say that working with Davi, with ayahuasca, with Daime, yes, it's cleared my trauma of all that, right? It's helped me with my trauma, but it's also awakened my ecological conscience. It's lit a fire in me that's already burning inside of him and already burning inside of you, to help save the earth, whatever that looks like.
Thank you so much, Greg. This was a beautiful response. And I think I would also just like to respond to that and kind of add in, you know, that there are many kind of universal teachings of ayahuasca and psychedelics. And one of those universal teachings is the reconnection with the earth. And to me, from what I've witnessed and experienced, is that ayahuasca has left the jungle. Right now, there is medicine work everywhere, in cities, in suburbs, you name it, it is far and wide, as is many psychedelics. But to me, what I've seen is that it is because we are in an ecological crisis. We are in an emergency, and there are just simply not, there's no way that that there are enough people that need medicine that would be able to receive it any other way than it leaving the jungle and going into the cities and bringing this awakening on a collective, because there's an emergency. We need to awaken and return to harmony and balance and medicine kind of spreading out and leaving the Amazon, leaving its places of origin, that's part of the call, is like awakening each of us to give time, give attention to the crises that are happening in the world, and specifically in the Amazon being the lungs of the planet and being a place that is important not just for them and our medicines in that place, but literally the whole ecological system of our world is dependent on that region. Any other questions?
So we're a little over 7, so we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Anyone here who has more questions, you will have time with Greg during the signing line. So if you're thinking of questions now. And then so Greg, I'll just invite you for final words, and we'll say goodnight to the virtual audience, and then we'll continue with the book signing. Thank you.
So again, thank you to Malaprop's bookstore. Thank you to Stephanie for your hospitality and your organization. Thank you to Truth is One. Thank you to the Psychedelic Society of Asheville. And they brought some materials that you can look at. There's a QR code that you can use to access more information about them. They are a new but quickly growing local organization here in Asheville, and their offerings are starting to become vast and very exciting. And thank you also to Davi and Yara. Thank you so much. And it's an honor to share the stage with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.